All right, so this is the Oz report for March 26, 2022, and as always, let's start with Cerebral Accelerator. I went over this earlier on the stream today. Again, just like last week, let me just repeat again that the bonding Cerebral accelerators that are right now in the game, it's not a good idea to buy these right now, to consume them, or to invest in them because they are still way overpriced. The only people that are benefiting from the ISK per SP ratio or on those are characters over 80 million SP, so do not buy them. The expert Cerebral accelerators, those are the ones that I've been telling you to buy for several weeks because there was a big sale that was going on in February where a lot of these entered the market, as you can see by the market volume right here. They dropped down to near 800 million and since then have started climbing back up to 1 billion. Been mentioning this for a few weeks now. They're almost back up. A lot of you guys made a lot of money on these, but they're not quite there yet. The buy price is actually still at 870, so you could still make a buck here and there on trading expert cerebral accelerators. But I think I can promise this to be the last week that I mentioned this. All right. Let's jump into something else. Let's jump into PLEX. Okay, PLEX. Again, two reasons for the PLEX price taking off like it has. It has increased again since last week. PLEX for good was one thing, but that is over now. The second thing is certain parts of the player base in Russia not being able to buy subscriptions with real life cash and resorting to PLEX, and so we're seeing the demand for PLEX increase, and that has made the PLEX price spike to about 3.2 million. I think right now is a good time to sell your PLEX because I don't think it's very likely that this rally is going to be going on for that much longer. Of course, there's a possibility there is, but I think it's more likely that it will turn around sometime soon. This also has an impact on large skill injectors. So if we look at the large skill injector market, it had peaked around November, and since then it has been dropping. And one reason for that is that typically, if you look at the demand for skill injectors that is there, it's typically new players trying to catch up, or veterans trying to reskill into something. Right now the demand really hasn't been there, and the supply of these large skill injectors has been quite large. The last thing, and I think we talked about this last week as well, the last thing that increased the supply of large skill injectors was people liquidating their characters for the PLEX for Good campaign, and so up until last week we saw an increase in large skill injectors and an actual drop into them. What we saw this week is an actual stabilizing of the price, and it actually turning back around to 640 million sell price on a large skill injector, and the rise in prices is somehow also connected to the PLEX price, because what the PLEX price does is the PLEX price will a high PLEX price will make the price of quote unquote skill farming, so the production, the turning of PLEX into large skill injectors, to make it most simple, it makes it more expensive. So a high PLEX price makes skill farming less profitable, and that means it also means the amount of large skill injectors hitting the game decreasing. So what we should see with a vastly increasing PLEX price is the amount of large skill injectors entering the game decreasing. However, that effect should be lagging. Nevertheless, and yes, that was a very complicated sentence. I'm sorry for that. It's today again we're doing the Oz report at the end of the stream, which is never a good idea for the Oz report. What we're seeing is buy prices of large skill injectors at 600 million. The bottom line is, whether you understood the sentence or not, 600 million buy price is not a bad buy price for skill injectors. It's typically a good idea to to buy them, even if you immediately turn around and sell them at 640 million, because that margin alone right now is worth it, and it's a very liquid market. So that's a quite realistic scenario, right? Multiple pilot training certificates, you could look for that rally to end, because we are seeing various deals that include them in the EVE store right now and in various packs. So even if those are not able to hit the market because they're not the tradable kind, they will reduce the demand for multiple pilot training certificates, and that means that the price will likely be turning downwards over the next week or so. So you can, if you have them and you can sell them before the price drop, then that would be a good idea, especially because the current price is not a bad one. All right, let's talk Moongoo. Okay. Again, we saw a week where Moongoo dropped 8% in price, and that overall as a category, right? And that is from an already very, very low price point. We saw an 8% drop last week, we saw an 8% drop this week, and that means that especially on R4 Moongoo, atmospheric gases, evaporate deposits, and some of the R8 and silicates, and some of the R8 as well, the scandium, the cobalt, those are the ones that got hit the most and had the biggest price drops, up to 20 and 30% price drops this week alone. And that will mean that you will see prices for capital ships come down. You will see prices for tier 2 ships come down. All of the ships that use a lot of the Moongoo will drop in price significantly, and we've already seen that happening. If you look at prices like the Obelisk, you can see that those high prices are gone, right? The Fenrir, these are freighters. They use a lot of this Moongoo. They've already started dropping down, and also if you look at faction ships, so Navy ships, for example, the Raven Navy issue or the Drake Navy issue, those have already started dropping as well, because not only are we seeing the input material like Moongoo dropping, but we also know that CCP will, before FanFest, so before the beginning of May, will change the BPCs for, as they put it, faction ships, dreadnoughts, and capitals to reduce their price, and probably significantly. So this right here means that there is no question you should be dropping your capital ships and your faction ships right now if you're holding stockpiles of them, because there's no way those prices are going to hold, and you already are starting to see that if you look at a bunch of these ships. These are just some examples. Interestingly enough, you look at some of the T3 ships like the Jackdaw. Clearly, there are some fleets out there using Jackdaws, because with Jackdaws, if you have these lying around right now, is the perfect time to sell them. There's basically none left in the market, and they're trading at 58 million. So that's quite huge, right? All right, let's talk about ice. Ice is kind of like moon materials. Ice has increased in available quantity quite significantly, because it was introduced. The amount available in game has been doubled twice over the last 6 months. I keep repeating this, and so helium, liquid ozone, any type of isotopes, they've all been crashing in price. The reason I mentioned that today is because this is the first week where we didn't see a drop in ice in forever, right? Yes, there were rallies going on sometime in November, but those were very short-lived. Right now, it's actually been stable for a week. So here, I dare say that this is the bottom of the ice drop. I've said this before. I've been wrong before, but I think there's very good indication that we have seen bottom ice. And probably also going to see fuel prices stabilizing in the long run here, around the isotopes around 500 and fuel blocks around 15K. One thing I want to mention is implants. The crystal implants that, if I remember correctly, come from Gorista's LP, I think. They've been great trade items because they've been fluctuating so erratically. And typically, if you can buy something like the mid-grade Crystal Epsilon, which is a very high volume trading implant, if you can catch them around 100 million, it's typically been a very, very good trade. And right now, it's that time again. So I do recommend buying into those markets. Typically, these are temporary impacts that we see on people dumping a bunch of LP into the market and trading in for these crystal implants, and then bringing them all to the market at the same time. And typically it's a temporary thing. So something like mid-grade Crystal Epsilon or mid-grade Crystal Gamma are a very good investment right now because their buy price is super, super low. So that's one thing. Let me also mention Precursor modules. So we're talking something like the disintegrator weapons, the Velis Heavy, the Velis Light. There's really no reason for them to increase in price, but they did, and that means that there's some doctrine out there that is using this a lot, be it for structure bashing or other stuff. But we're seeing entropic radiation sink significantly increase in price. Any of the Velis disintegrators increasing in price. So if you have these laying around, you've been crying your way to heavy losses there because they've been dropping in price because of abyssal materials dropping in price. They've recovered a little bit, so now might be a good time to sell them, right? So yes, the entropic radiation sink has been dropping forever, and it is back to like 2.8 million, I think, entropic radiation sink too. Yeah, about 2.8. You can see I'm already trying to liquidate here as well. And yeah, by the way, abyssal materials, crystalline isogen 10, 0-point condensate, terrible. All right, something that was low is dropping even more. Specifically, if you're looking at crystalline isogen, look at this, buy orders at 11K. That's just terrible. I mean, that is so low that it's basically free, and that will mean either a bounce back or Triglavian ships are about to get very, very, very cheap. You're going to see very cheap Kikimoras, you're going to see very cheap Dracovacs, and kind of cheap Leshaks, even though for Leshaks it's not that big of an impact. So the smaller ships are going to feel the impacts. The Vadmax, the Dracovacs, the Kikimoras, those are going to get extremely cheap if this continues. All right? All right. I've talked about ships. Lastly, want to mention 3 items. I said this last week already. The C3X Hiva Seizuo ballistic control system. This is about to drop from the egg hunt event that is coming up. That's the time of year where it drops a lot. Still, it's on a rally right now because it's a very popular module. So right now is the time you want to sell these. Okay, if you have these laying around right now, you want to sell them because they're going to drop in price. I said this last week, say it this week, because it's important that you do if you've been collecting these, all right? Now, Caldari Navy Vice Admiral insignia. This is one of the most traded insignias out there, and that's what makes it a very, very good trade item. This is something that gets looted, gets dropped to buy orders in the market. You can almost always sell them to sell orders because people are buying them to trade them into LP stores. And so the margin on them is always great, but right now they're also on a rally. So right now it's a special item to have a look into. The volume traded is very high. You can have a lot of fun with this item, Caldari Navy Vice Admiral Insignia 1. And lastly, let me finish with guidance systems, right? Guidance systems is something you have to be very, very careful with. Why do I say this? Is because essentially the guidance system market is completely broken, okay? There are people out there that could single-handedly supply the guidance system market for years. I have seen the stockpiles. We have analyzed these stockpiles on my stream, right? There's double-digit millions of these out there, okay? On an item that only gets traded like 50K a day, okay? This is something that at any point in time, one of these players, if they're still playing, could come in and just drop all their stuff on the market, and this would crash down and be immediately worth nothing. This doesn't happen frequently, right? And so you see rallies like this happen. Still though, if you have these lying around, right? I always think that rallies like this, where it's hitting 66k, is a good idea to liquidate. Okay, so 66k right now is a clear sell order from my end. And if you're wondering why is it that these are lying around, this used to not be a PI item. This used to be an NPC item that you could buy very cheaply, and through whatever leaks, good ideas, intuition, whatever, some alliances and players were able to amass vast quantities of these, essentially breaking the market. And this is not the only item that happens with, but that's something for another day, another stream. All right, so we're gonna wrap up the Oz report right here. I'll see you guys on my stream next week, and we'll go back to the regular stream right now on the CCP channel. All right. Cool. Everyone, stick around.